All right, everyone, going to be getting into the best bets for the Masters tournament. That's going to include prop bets, outright bets, top 5 to top 20 bets, first round leader bets, as well as some round 1 matchup bets. Got it all covered for you guys here. Let's go in and get into it. Now, I do want to start with PrizePicks versus Underdog, just kind of comparing the two to see if we can find an edge there at all. And I do want to start off with saying all these ones on PrizePicks where it's like any hole related props, we are just not touching. Maybe throughout the day, we can see that one hole is playing more difficult or easier than expected, and then we could bet on it. Like, that could be something to watch and monitor. But as it sits right now, those are literally out there to trap you into betting them. That's why they're there. I talk about this a lot in NBA DFS. Like, a lot of people will try to bet first half props, and we're just reducing the sample size there. Let's not do that unless we see an edge. Okay, that's the first thing I want to start with. And then just looking at it, we have a full prop board. It's kind of crazy. I was a little bit shocked by that, but I will say probably the best bets that we're going to get are going to be the birdie or better bets, and I'll touch on that as this video progresses. Let's look at strokes. So strokes I find extremely interesting, just given the fact that we can see probably the biggest edge that we're going to get. And I find this extremely interesting. Now, the issue that we have here is that the tournament, Augusta National, had made a little bit of course changes, and as well as that, when looking at the potential weather, at least for Thursday, it's gonna be good. Okay, we can see that, but Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we don't exactly know how it's gonna play out. So for this video purposes, for everything that's not like outright bet or top 5, top 10 bets, that's good because we don't have to worry about the weather too much. We can see that there is rain in the forecast for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Now, we do see that, you know, the weather might not be as big of a storyline as it originally seemed like at the start of the week. If the winds and the gusts are kind of projected to get up to 20-mile-per-hour winds, something to monitor for sure. But, and this is a question that someone had last week, it's like, someone was saying, there's been a lot of talk that the weather is actually going to play a big difference. I'm like, no, weather, wind starts to play a big difference when it gets over 15 mile per hour in terms of scoring difference. It really starts to raise up the scoring over 15. And then once it gets to 20, a lot more than that. And then over 25, just a ton. So let's just be careful with that. It could play a factor. Right now, it's not looking as drastic as it did earlier on in the week. Now, don't get me wrong, this is weather. This can change. But who's to say that, you know, if there's some thunderstorms on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, who's to say that they're not going to suspend play, right? But at least for round 1, we should be able to accurately say that the tournament data that we have coming in from the past few Masters tournaments should be accurate. Now, if the rain comes in, it actually could make it easier to score, which would then make these scoring props, and by easier, I mean it's going to soften up the greens then, thus, golfers are able to control their ball a little bit more. The greens aren't as firm as they typically are. Thus, the scoring would be a little bit easier. So that would make these props a little bit more difficult. Now, I do want to call out, we do have some discrepancies between like Underdog and PrizePicks here. So for example purposes, Underdog has Jordan Spieth strokes valued at 71.5. We can see that PrizePicks is actually undervaluing him at 71. That is a small edge that does add up. So if we were trying to look to do an overbet, this would be an okay one. I kind of want to take the wait and see approach, at least for round 1 scoring, to see how the course plays. But then again, the weather is changing a little bit on Friday, so we don't exactly know what to do there. That's what makes it difficult. Let's look at the opposite side of this as well. And I don't really want to touch these either, because these 3 players, Zach Johnson, Kevin Kisner, and Kurt Kitayama, you know, they typically play, except for Kisner, they typically play in easier events. Thus, that's why their scoring average, their player average, is much lower than maybe some other players like Billy Horschel and Adam Scott. Zach Johnson has just played an easier scoring event. So I just want to make that clear. I want to point that out. Going along with that, if we look at like holes played, we can see we're getting that for Zach Johnson as well. That kind of gets me a little bit worried. Kevin Kisner as well. So they're saying probably not going to be the best. And for what it's worth, like, sure, do I see Phil Mickelson making the cut? Probably not. Do I see Charles Schwartzel making the cut? Probably not. Cameron Champ? Probably not. But, you know, besides Phil, probably should be close. Like Zach, I think it's an okay value play. I'm not expecting much from any of these guys, so probably just stay away there. The props that I think we're getting the biggest edge on are going to be the birdie or better ones. So let's switch to birdie or better. And so looking at it, like we can see on paper, definitely not a big edge, okay? But it's in comparison to Underdog that I think we are getting an edge. So we can see right here, Xander's birdie or better, we are favoring the under slightly. I mean, it's very tight, right? 4 there. But we can see on Underdog, they have it set at 4.5. To me, that could be a slight edge, okay? Like lower than 4.5 birdies or better. We can see by looking at this chart, the average birdie or better scored at the Masters is about 3.8, okay? So for Xander to get the over here, he would have to hit 5 birdies. And I'm not saying that's not possible, but he is paired up with Tiger Woods. That's kind of my biggest worry, really. Him and Victor Hovland are paired up with Tiger Woods. And I'm not saying that Tiger Woods himself is the distraction. It's kind of everything else that being paired up with Tiger brings in. There's a lot of fans. There's a lot more coverage. There's just a lot more nuances that go along with it that kind of makes me a little bit worried about Xander's ability to go off. And you think about Victor Hovland and Xander, they're not really guys that command a presence, if you will. I love Xander, but I don't think he strikes fear in anyone. I don't think Hovland does as well. I would say it's more or less the other way around. So it's just tough to see Xander gain 5 birdies. Now, I would love that because I do think I'm going to outright bet him, but 5 is a lot. Okay, so I do expect him to get lower than 4.5. And so I'm saying 5 because for this not to hit, he would have to get 5 birdies. And right now, that kind of seems crazy. And now a similar one that we are getting here is that Jason Day, birdie or better, is set at 3.5 on Underdog. On PrizePicks, they actually have it set at 4. This is a spot in which it's really up to you guys. A lot of people love Jason Day this week. I think he's a strong play as well. Has struggled the last 2 times out at the Masters, but overall should be a good play. Like, I'm not too worried about him as a play. It's very interesting. Like, this is where we could kind of hedge. Like, you could bet higher on Underdog, and you can also bet lower on PrizePicks. It's kind of a weird strategy that I've done to be really successful on Underdog by kind of hedging the difference between PrizePicks and Underdog by finding the different discrepancies that are out there. And that's clearly one. And then just 2 more that kind of stood out to me when I was kind of just comparing the 2. We got Justin Thomas and Collin Morikawa set at 4 on PrizePicks. We go to Collin Morikawa's birdie or better, 4.5. Okay, he's another golfer that's kind of been struggling a little bit recently in comparison to kind of what we expect from him. So for him to get 5 birdies, it'd just be a little bit shocking. Now, there are birdies out there, okay? At the same time, he's been so hit or miss that it'd be tough for me to imagine him getting. And now Thomas, this is probably the one I'm most weary about because Thomas is so hit or miss, so hit or miss. He could be the round 1 leader, or he could barely be projected to make the cut after round 1 and then have a good round 2. That's kind of JT. The thing with it is, I feel like he's either going to get like 6 birdies or get significantly under this. So, we can see these are discrepancies where Underdog, and it's kind of surprising because typically speaking, Underdog will put the props at an even number because they don't like pay out for a push, whereas PrizePicks does. So these are all okay ones. And for what it's worth, like with Xander, Morikawa, JT, I would say that like Cantlay should be there for 4 point. Like if they were going to prop these guys up at 4.5, I would say Cantlay should be there. I would say Finau should be there. They're all at 4. Hideki as well. So just something I found interesting there. And then let's just see if we can find any other prop bets that are kind of suitable for round 1. No, nothing too crazy. We got Tagala over Adams Venson. Probably not touching that. Yeah, none of these really seem like kind of stand out. I was hoping we would get some. Tom Kim versus Jordan Spieth. People would probably be sucked into that one. I don't mind Sungjae Im over Kurt Kitayama. Sungjae Im is one of the best plays on the board this week, Masters wise. So I could see doing that for him. I'd be fine with that. Kurt Kitayama is playing in his first Masters, I believe. Let's just double check that. Playing in his first Masters. So Sungjae Im at least has that experience, has great experience at the Masters. All right, now let's look at some other props as well. Let's look at Gert and fairways hit combined. So once again, like we are seeing the biggest difference in the props, most likely being the stroke, but also we can see fairways hit. There's a big difference. And ooh, wow. And actually, let's just start out with greens and regulation props instead. So I mentioned that, if we do get the rain, it actually should make like hitting the greens and everything a little bit easier. So if we do see in the forecast, maybe come late tonight, then I would say the overs would kind of be the way to go. Now, I do find this one for Rory extremely interesting. Augusta is set up in a way that if you are driving the ball well, you should be able to hit the greens in regulation. So Rory is someone that obviously has been kind of hit or miss with the driver, but we saw in his last event, actually, let's go back 2 events ago, he was really complaining about his driver, not being able to hit it the way he was wanting to. In terms of like the golf ball here, like meeting the club face, and he ended up switching his shaft, which is now big golf terms, but which is now helping him make better contact, more consistent contact, and he really just dominated at the Dell Technologies match play tournament because of that. And so if he is still driving the ball well, then this would be a prop that I'd probably want to stay away from. Although at the same time, 12.5 greens on regulation is going to be a lot, especially if the greens are firm and fast. And I would say on Thursday, once again, given the rain that we're projected to get on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I feel like they're going to try to dry out the greens for the Thursday round because they know that there's going to be heavy rain. And so to me, I do see the greens being ones in which are going to run off a little bit more frequently, maybe more so than they have in the past. So I'd kind of be fine betting all these slightly under for round one, and then we can take the wait and see approach. And then just looking at this, I'm probably not betting any overs. Let's go and look at fairways hit. So this is really crazy to me, guys. Just the big discrepancies that we are getting in general here. Okay, they all are favoring the under. Don't get me wrong here. Okay, the average for the event is 7.84 fairways hit. And so like for someone like Corey Connor, Sanjay M, like, yeah, we are probably doing the unders for those guys. At the same time, like Connor, Sanjay M, they have been striking the ball very well. Once again, it's really just how is the course playing? I would say if we were getting these props maybe tomorrow or Friday where the course probably is going to play a little bit softer, thus the ball is going to stick a little bit more and not run out as much, then yeah, I'd feel better about doing overbet. But because I think the course is going to play firm and fast, at least on Thursday, betting the unders does make a lot of sense. But look at the difference here. I mean, that's pretty crazy from 8.5 to 10.5. And like JT has been really scattershot with his little Halo reference, scattershot with his drives. At the same time, this is Masters. You kind of expect him to have that stuff figured out. So just very interesting. Like I'm probably just going to go with the data. My biggest mistake each and every week, and I'm sure it's you guys as well, is just not trusting the data as much as I should. And so I'll probably just go with those. And then for what it's worth, like looking at greens and regulation for Tiger, it does feel low, especially for round one. We have seen him actually play surprisingly well in round one and then kind of fall off as his leg and body tend to wear out. So we do expect him to give his A game. If you've been following any of the coverage at all, Rory's been talking him up saying, oh, he's really looks good. I can see actually betting the over there. And then at the same time, if we're doing that, then we're probably doing it for fairways hit as well for Tiger. Just seems low. Now, real quickly, I do want to talk about Underdog's best ball drafts. Mostly, honestly, guys, it's because I have a sponsor with them. If you guys are new and want to make a deposit to it, that's going to kick back some money to my channel. And to find that link, it's going to be in the video description here. Okay. All you have to do is click on it right here. Okay. You get 100% match on a deposit up to $100. Okay. That just kicks back money to me. But I wanted you guys know me. I won't be like just hyping up a product just to hype up a product. Okay. I do think there's a big edge here, whether that be in the round by round best ball drafts, and we can treat that like a showdown slate. That can be a huge edge where we're just picking the best round one showdown picks. I like that aspect. And so it's already preset to that, but we could go to majors as well. Majors, they still have a bunch of contests available as well. I want to show you guys a draft that I had as well because it'll show you guys kind of the edge that is out there. So here's the draft that I ended up finishing with. Like, it is insane. And like, if I don't win, I'm going to be so mad. But this goes to kind of the casuals that are out there playing. I was able to get Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, and Max Homa. I was able to get, let's just say, 3 out of the top 7 players in the world right now in a build together. Now, yes, I was lucky to get Scotty as pick 1, but how the heck did I get Cantlay and Homa in picks 2 and 3 in round 2 and 3? That was crazy. And then it did fall off a little bit. People were like panicking and like doing better drafts. I would say on the back end, it wasn't as good as other drafts I have had. But like Ricky, though, to get like at the end was awesome. I know he's not playing at the Masters, but Ricky at that pick to play in some of the other majors that are out there, that could be huge. That's kind of I don't want to say a free square, but I do expect Ricky to be playing well at the other majors that are out there. And so that's a good thing to call out, tournament schedule as well. All right, but now let's switch up and let's get into kind of the outright board. Okay, so I'm going to go to the betting page. All right, so this tool is awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and sort by bet type, and we're going to go with outright bets. Okay, we can see the average sportsbook line bets that we are getting out there, and we can sort by that. 4 players to win. Right now, Rory is the favorite to win. Okay, but you could sort it by where you're trying to find the best sportsbook odds. And there are more that we can add in there. Go to optional metrics, and there's so many more. Okay, maybe some people like Circa, you could add that in there, and then it's going to add it in right here. Okay, I'm going to take that off. I try to put in the most popular ones into this view just so we can see. And then we do have the 9 to 5 model rank there as well, so you can kind of see in comparison as to which players you should be on. Another thing you can do is, let's say you think there's going to be a weather advantage, you can sort by early or late as well, which I see as like just a kind of an edge there as well. That's going to more come into play for maybe first round leader props and whatnot, but a very cool feature, I would say. So let's just touch on like where we're getting the biggest discrepancies there. Well, if you're betting on Jon Rahm, you're betting on him on FanDuel, and I would say on FanDuel there are like the lower we go down, the bigger the difference is. Like if you're betting on Jason Day, you're betting on him on FanDuel. Same thing with Colin Morikawa. Now I've been very hesitant to put out this kind of tool because a big mistake that I personally make is let's use maybe props as an example. There's so many different prop sites out there that when I start to overload on them, I actually become a worse player because I'm trying to find the best lines, and then I'm spending my time trying to find the best lines when I'm not spending the time and mental fortitude to make the best props, if that makes sense. But it is like a good kind of last step to do is like, okay, I know I want to bet on this player, this player, and this player. Then you could come in and do it this way. But at the same time, I've noticed personally, when I have money like on different accounts, it hurts more than it helps, in all honesty. But like, let's look at this. Like Xander, I think, is a good, strong outright bet this week. Okay, we can see, we could bet him on DraftKings or FanDuel. And let's just pull up Xander. I already mentioned that, like, it's kind of a weird way in hedging. Like, he is paired up with Tiger. Okay, that's my biggest worry with him. And that's why with the, going back to kind of the pick'em, that's why I might bet him under 4.5 birdies or better. Now, let's say if that's not a factor, then man, he is going to be in contention to win. I mentioned this on the other video. It's like, if Xander's going to win, it's not going to be because he is just like dominating and winning the event. He is going to fall into a victory. Xander, throughout his career, like anytime he has a chance to take control of an event, he always chokes. It's a duck hook or a slide. Majority of the time into the water. It's crazy. That literally happened at the Dell Technologies match play tournament against Rory. It's insane. And so as long as he doesn't have the opportunity to take control of the tournament, as long as he's always chasing, then I think he could kind of fall into a victory. And if you guys are confused by what I'm saying there, let's kind of just use maybe Justin Thomas major championship win last year, where Mito was in control of it and then choked, whereas JT was always chasing and kind of fell into a victory because Mito choked. That's kind of what we need to happen, I think, for Xander, because mentally he just always has a terrible shot. And even at the Masters, when he had, I think it was 2 years ago, the par 3 it's the par 4, he goes for and just terrible shot into the water. It's just kind of who he is. At the same time, I do think like the stars are aligned and he could easily kind of find himself in the winner's circle. Another bet that I do kind of really like, at the same time, I don't know, like Finau has one, and if we go back further to recent form 10, like we just put in all these starts in here as well into the sample size, we'll see a bunch of high upside finishes from him. Like 3 wins over his past 15 starts. That's incredible. So he has proven that he can win. Does have good course history here. 4th best staff in the field, 5th best specialist in the field. We've seen the upside finishes be there from him. 3rd best in the 9-to-5 model. Like the stars kind of do align for him as well. And these are 2 props that we are actually still finding some pretty good odds on. And I would say, yes, they are more or less good odd bets rather than like great outright bets. But we go to BetMGM, we can get 25-1 and both Bovada as well, 25-1 for Tony Finau to win. Those are pretty good odds. And I will say my favorite dark horse, if you can call him that, would be Patrick Cantlay. I say dark horse because it doesn't seem like anyone's talking him up. We can get 20-1 odds for him, and that feels good. And I do want to bring up an interesting thing. If you guys follow like people on Twitter at all, Joe, he does like preferred lines. Awesome name. I'm very jealous of that name, by the way. He kind of mentioned, he put out tweets like, well, this year we're getting 3 players at below 10-1. And then the rest are pretty much like 20-1. And the reason that is because the sports books are pretty much saying, we think one of these 3 golfers are going to win. And they want you to bet on anyone else. They are putting decent numbers on everyone else because they want you to bet on them. Because they think, and it makes sense, that one of these golfers are going to win. Like Rory, man, he's had so many practice rounds here. If he doesn't win, that low-key be embarrassing for him, especially given how well he's playing right now at this moment. And then Scotty Scheffler, just playing the best golf out of anyone. And then Rahm, sure, he's had 3 lackluster events in a row. At the same time, we can get him at 10-1 on Bovada. That's pretty good odds right there as well. It wouldn't be like everyone's going to bring their A game. It wouldn't be surprising to see him win, but it's pretty clear that these 3 are the big dogs and then everyone else is chasing. But to me, Patrick Cantlay at 21, it does seem like this is like the perfect Patrick Cantlay week where not many people are talking about him. Course history wise has gotten worse each time, which does worry me. 39th miscut, 17th, 9th. But if we look at his overall starts, 9th place finish in his last event, 19th, 4th, 3rd, pretty good stuff as a whole. He's just one of those golfers that's always going to kind of not make mistakes. And I think that's going to be the theme this week is golfers that are not making mistakes. Thus, I think Patrick Cantlay is going to be a pretty strong play, pretty strong outright bet. And then lastly, like it's weird, but I really like Sungjae Im. We just look at this 9-to-5 mile ranked 9th. And once again, I want to call us out. The 9-to-5 model is factoring in both safety and upside. Okay. With the emphasis on the safety. So these golfers that are cut makers like Finau, like Xander, like Sungjae are going to be valued a little bit more than, let's say, Cameron Young, who's like kind of very hit or miss, like Sam Burns, who up until the last 2 events had really been struggling. Sungjae Im has good course history, 2 out of 3 made cuts, and 2 of those made cuts at the Masters were top 10 finishes, and he's just been making a bunch of cuts in a row. So that's why he's being valued that much. But we can see outright wise, 15th best, 9-to-5 mile, 10th. So pretty good odds there. he is someone that I would say would be a little bit shocking to win. At the same time, we can get him at 45-1 odds for a golfer that clearly is a really strong play. We're not going to get any other good odds like that. And then lastly, I do find it crazy that we can get 34-1 odds on Max Homa, who I would argue is the fourth best player in the world right now. I would say Rory, Rahm, Scotty, probably flip that order. I would say Scotty, Rahm, Rory, three best in that order. I don't really care if like whatever. And then I would say you could argue Max Homa. I don't think we've seen Cameron Smith enough to really put him in that regard. But anyways, Max Homa, top 5 golfer in the world. I don't think anyone would really argue with that. And he's coming in with the 5th best odd or 13th best odds. That's crazy. And I know he's not ranking out well in the 9 to 5 model. Let's go ahead and point out why. It's going to be because of this poor course history, right? The thing with Max Homa is he sucked really prior to last year. He is not a good golfer. I mean, he was obviously, but he was not the golfer he is today, right? Max Homa lately, and let's click off of recent form 10 to 15. Like, he has been playing some pretty strong golf. Like, his worst start was recent form 5, whereas the 39th place finish. Besides that, all of them have been top 14 or better finish. Like, we can see it, just the second best recent form right now in the field. To me, it's crazy that we are getting those odds for him. If you are someone that does an odds bet, FanDuel 34-1, that is just shouldn't be out there. And yes, they're probably trying to get us to bet that, but what is the most important thing at Augusta? That's actually a true question. Don't answer that question. But an important thing is having course experience. But what's also one of the most important things every single week? Ding ding, having course experience. Okay, we see that being the biggest difference week in and week out in terms of people that are winning tournaments. He does have course experience, and I like the fact that last year he finally figured out a way to make the cut. Now this year I can see him, taking that next step. And he is someone that come Sunday, if he finds himself in contention, would be too shocking to see him win. I would say I like his chances better than Morikawa, Jason Day, Cameron Smith, DJ. JT's okay. I just don't love his odd. But now let's go ahead and check out some other things here. We got a bunch of other props to touch on. And for what it's worth, let's just do kind of quick for top 5 and whatnot. Top 5, top 10, and top 20. All right, so I'm going to sort by top 5 to start. So looking at, we are getting some interesting ones here. And this is where I think we could kind of get unique with the outright bets. I always my outright betting approach in terms of like giving out content is letting you guys decide what you want to do with it. If you want to bet them to top 5, top 10, that's up to you as well. That's definitely up to you. This is another way that we can go about doing it. We can try to find the best odds for, this as well. So we can see like maybe we could bet, Scotty Scheffler and Rory to top 5 at 1.7. on bet 365. Like, that's all right. But like, this is kind of crazy. For Sungjae Im to top 5, we are kidding what would be the outright odds for like Rory or Scotty. Those are pretty good right there. And this is kind of crazy here. DraftKings is trying to get you to bet Cameron Smith to top 5. 5.5-1 is pretty good odds there. I'm probably not touching that, but like, that's pretty good. And same thing for Colin Morikawa here and Cameron Young. We are seeing DraftKings just be lighter on a lot of these big name guys. They are trying to get you to bet them to top 5 because, in all honesty, they got a lot of name value, and I wouldn't say any of them are like strong enough plays to warrant like going in on them as top 5 bets. That is precisely what they're trying to do with these odds, is get you to bet them. But really all of them as well, like Terrell Hatton as well, 10-1. We look at the average odds, 9. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Let's just take a peek at, let's say, the top 10 and top 20. Actually, let's just go to top 10 or top 20. And this is where it does get a lot tighter. I would say it's pretty crazy. Like Sungjae Im, top 20 at an average of 1.07-1. Let's just take that. Those are great odds there for Sungjae Im. Guys, if he is playing well, he is finishing top 20. This course suits his game. So if he is playing well, he should be able to top 20 because the course really suits his game. That's a really good number. Same thing for Victor Hovland. Like, I put out a tweet, and I'll pull it up here, like top rain specialist. Okay, obviously Thursday, I already mentioned this, like we don't really have to worry about that too much, but these are the top rain special. And guys, this is a very difficult stat to actually do, especially in terms of the amount of rain we're projected to get. I want to make that clear. It's probably the least, actually, let me rephrase that. It's probably the one that can be most picked apart. Okay, it's one in which I had to go through and see where did we get heavy amount of rains and where was play suspended. And with that, I think the player that had the most starts going into the sample was like 10, and the average starts was like 4. So very small sample size. I want to make that clear. But Victor Hovland was one of those players that really popped there. And so maybe there's an advantage there. We see Tino Fino popping up in there as well. Kind of surprising there. John Rahm, Kevin Na, Corey Connors, that's also surprising. Guys, if you haven't been let's go ahead and make sure to follow 9 to 5 on Twitter. But I find those two very crazy. And same thing for like Hideki and Corey Connors. Corey Connors has tremendous course history. What are we doing here? He's just coming in off of a victory, playing some really good golf. That to me is a really good number that we were getting there as well. Hideki, what's going on? What is going on there with Hideki? This is something I feel the need to pull up. Hideki has finished 14th, 1st, 13th, and 32nd. A lot of people are worried about like Hideki being injured. This is also another tweet that I kind of want to highlight. It's also was a part of the 9 to 5 write-up as well. And guys, the 9 to 5 write-up is available for 9 to 5 members. That's kind of the unfortunate side of doing like DFS as well. It's that I can't give out stuff for free because then my site members would be losing an edge. And I would say it's a very big edge each week. But looking at it, I got into Hideki more and more as the week went on. Like, because of the news attention that Hideki commands, I feel like we get more injury news on him than we do any other player. Now, could he actually be injured? Yes, but I feel like the injuries that he has gets magnified because of the amount of news that we get, because we are not getting that for any other golfer because, well, that's just not in the scope of golf reporting other than Hideki, because he has a whole freaking nation of reporters coming in and at each event and tracking that stuff. And like a quote from Xander was perfect for this. He went ahead and said, you know what, guys, if there was an actual golf report, injury report, it would change the whole like scope of golf betting. And I was like, that's crazy. And it does make sense because there's so many golfers that will randomly get news on, oh yeah, I've been battling a wrist injury, I've been battling this and that. And so that'd been good to know 2 weeks ago when we were heavily rostering you. Rahm with this sickness at the Players Championship. Now that's just all interesting stuff. And then from there, it would kind of feel like we'd be forcing it a little bit. Let's see if we have any good like odds. Maybe Tom Kim at like 2.2 to 1. That's not terrible. I will say Louis Oosthuizen as well. I feel like he's getting very disrespected this week just because we haven't seen him. Like, I feel like if he was simply just playing on the PGA Tour and had not played in any real events, just played in like the no-cut events that you would typically play in, I feel like he wouldn't be getting this disrespected. Now, is he a lock and they'll play? No. And does he have great Masters history? No. But you know, pretty good odds that we are getting there. Then lastly, first round leader. Let's get into that because first round leader is super fun. It's something that I always enjoy betting on because we can get some really good odds on some players here. And Rory, for some reason, isn't pulling in enough like round one data. I don't really know what's going on there, so ignore that. I would say Rory is perfectly fine to bet first round lead. I'm perfectly fine with that. But I mentioned this a lot. Like last week, it was kind of the exception to the rule. But typically speaking, if you just target players in the AM to have the first round lead that are top 7 or better, or top 5% or better in the field, first round leader rank, you'd be able to hit a first round leader 50% of the events or more, a majority of the time. And the reason why that is because, well, a lot of the times first round leaders will be tied. So it's not too crazy. Like if you just did that with, let's just say the favorites each week, like that would also probably be true. And then some of these live golfers where they don't have any starts, they're also gonna be pulling in there. So a lot of like not enough of a small sample, or not enough of a big enough sample for a lot of these guys, but let's just sort by players that we do have data coming in on that have the early tee time. Jon Rahm. And guys, I actually love the idea. If we're betting on Jon Rahm, let's bet him to first round lead and win. Okay, seriously, that is the best move to go with Jon Rahm. He has done that multiple times over the past 2 years. Okay, and we can get really good odds on that, much better than the odds that we're getting for him outright currently. Now, could you just do first round lead and then also win? Sure, but if we do first round lead and win as one, we get the full payout for the first round lead. Now, obviously less likely, but we are getting like that's the move to go with Jon Rahm because he's the top ranked first round lead and he has the early tee time. From there, I don't mind the idea of going with Sanjay Im, Patrick Cantlay, Xander. JT, I don't know what to do with JT. He's so hit or miss. That's the worry. And so going back to the underdog stuff, it's kind of the worry is that they're all ranking out as really strong first round leader bets as well. Let's go ahead and take a peek and like look at the odds here. So for Victor Hovland, 35 to 1, ranking out as one of the best options for first round leader rank. Here's another one, and we're probably not doing too much of Seamus Power, and I probably wouldn't, but 77 to 1 for a guy that ranks out really well first round leader rank. Like sure, like one round, can he get there? Sure, he can. Keith Mitchell as well, like pretty good odds there as well. So that's kind of the beauty of first round leader. Even if these guys tie and it has to be split up between 4, still pretty good odds that we are getting from that payout. Let's just look at all of them combined here because it is the Masters. I mentioned this a bunch. It's pretty much a glorified no-cut event in the fact that it's a small field. The play should be a little bit faster. The difference between AM to PM is not going to be as great this week. So like Scotty as well, 15 to 1, pretty good odds there. Tony Finau, pretty good odds there. Max Homa, 32 to 1. I mean, those are just crazy odds that we're getting there. I really don't mind that. Siwoo Kim, 60 to 1. That's pretty crazy. I mean, the best one obviously would be Seamus Power. I don't really expect that to happen for Seamus Power. And then real quickly, I do want to get into some round one matchup bets. 3 ball matchup. All right, so let's go ahead and take a peek at this. And we're just going to sort by matchup odds. I find this interesting. Collin Morikawa over Matt Fitzpatrick and also Will Zalatoris. Never mind. I know why this is happening. It's because it's Matthew Fitzpatrick and Matt Fitzpatrick. This is a different kind of data set that I'm pulling in. It's pulling in as Matthew Fitzpatrick instead of Matt Fitzpatrick. Let's ignore that. But then from there, I'm just going to click off that group. We go from there. Like, no shock. And I don't exactly know if these ones are even available like across the sports books, but it's worth looking at. Jason Day, a 40% chance to beat. Well, it's not shocking. The amateur that everyone's making too chalky. And then Zach Johnson. Like, yes, Jason Day should be able to beat them. Mingwoo Lee, yes, he should easily be able to beat that group. Cram and Tramp, I don't love too much this week, but like, in theory, should be able to beat them. Same thing with Bryson. Like, man, if you can't beat Molinari and JT Poston, what are you doing here? Taylor Gooch as well, live golfer, Scotty Scheffler. Like, these all make sense. And this is one of those situations where I have found success just literally betting golfers that are like 37, let's just say 38 or better % likelihood to win their group. Because once you start to get lower than that, let me click on, let's say Patrick Ham. Because once you start to get lower than that, it does get a little bit tighter in terms of the odds. But this is a great tool if you guys are someone that does round 3-ball bets. Very good asset. And if you guys haven't noticed, the biggest issue that I have with like putting out golf content is I have these tools that are literally designed to tell us who the best bets are, who the best plays are. And so it's tough for me to, let's just say, come up with these plays when I have data that says it. So it makes the content very difficult because it's very much just me reading off the plays rather than me putting analysis on it because, well, first of all, I already do that deep dive in the first video, and then this is kind of just regurgitating in a different way why they're good plays. It's kind of the difficult part about golf. But if you guys want access to any of the tools that you saw in this video, it's $10 a month. Like, gives you the best value in fantasy golf. I haven't even mentioned, like, I kind of hide this in the cheat sheet because I don't want people using it. I would say the number one, there's a bunch of issues that people have in fantasy golf. One of the issues would be trying to make it their own custom model a little bit too much, but like including that is the 9 to 5 custom model. Let's say like you're worried about the weather and you just want to look at like course history. So we go with H1, H2, H3, history 1, history 2, history 4. And then let's just say like recent form and like that's it, which, you know, pretty predictive stuff here. Let's go last 5 recent form. And then you're worried about the weather. Type in weather here. And then bad. Like, let's say you think it's going to be plus 15 mile per hour winds. You could toss in bad last 5 and then bad maybe last 20 as well to get a full sample size. And then we can see the full list of golfers that you would be wanting to target based off of those constraints that you do. You could easily export this then. Boom. And then you'd scroll down and you would upload the data to the cheat sheet. And once again, that's all included in this data as well as the PrizePicks cheat sheet. But that's all for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Masters coverage. Fun video for me to do. Hopefully you guys got some information out of it. Hopefully I was able to kind of streamline what your betting experience is going to be like for this week. It's tough, guys. There are so many different avenues to go about betting on golf. It's not like football or basketball or like really anything because there's so many different avenues in which we can bet on golf. That's kind of the beauty, but for me as a content creator, that's also the struggle of it because there's so many different ways to bet, to win. It's the beauty of it, but as a content creator, also the tough part of it. All right, thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.